My name is Sophia, and the podcast I chose for today was Breakdown by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is a really cool podcast that takes you inside the courtroom and discusses a bunch of legal affairs. In this case was a case on a boy who I believe was 22 months old, who was left in a hot car for, I think, 5 to 8 hours, and he died. And obviously his dad, who was supposed to take him to daycare, was responsible. So that's kind of what I'll be talking about today. I present to you Miss Chloe. Chloe, I just have to ask you, how do you feel towards things / people being left in hot cars in the middle of a hot summer day? Okay, the first thing I want to address is the rhetorical strategies that I really like that was presented in this podcast. I feel like logos and pathos were used a lot, especially because they're court cases. So, back to what I was saying. Logos and pathos are used a lot, especially because the fact that this dad left his son in a hot car. He went to work, and then straight after work, he went out with his friends. But there are just, many factors that, question the dad's thought process. I believe the dad's name was Justin Ross. I remember specifically one of the facts that was included with the case was that Cooper, Mr. Ross's son, who was left in the car to die, he sits in, I believe so Cooper is seated to the right-hand side of the car. And, if you're in the driver's seat is typically on the left. So it's hard to believe that Ross didn't intentionally leave Cooper in the car, but it's really harsh to assume that he did have intentions of leaving him in the car for such a long time. The narrator of this podcast, Bill Rankin, they interviewed mothers and fathers. I noticed that the fathers were just like, oh, I wish, or I hope that this doesn't happen to me. Versus when they interviewed the mothers, they were like, no, that's never going to happen. I just feel like there was a different demeanor because as a mother, you carry the child. And as a father, you help take care of the child. The quote that I pulled was a mother that said, after going through 9 months of childbirth, there's no way in the world that I would lose my child to something as devastating as that. After Bill Rankin mentioned the case with the principal leaving her daughter in the car, he went into how they found out that Ross had gone into work one day and he brought his guitar. I don't remember the reason, but he brought his guitar, and he mentioned that he wasn't going to leave his guitar in his car for whatever reason. So he didn't forget to bring his guitar into work, but he forgot his son in the car. I thought that was interesting and kind of just plays into logos and pathos, because logically, how are you going to forget a living child over an inanimate object? One of the people that Bill Rankin interviewed had mentioned, quote, such accidents are a trick of the mind, not of the heart. And that stood out to me. Makes you realize, we're all human. We make mistakes, and it sucks because sometimes those mistakes are so grave that it's hard to believe that, it's hard to convince people otherwise. I hope this podcast was somewhat enjoyable, especially with our little guest here. But it was fun to talk about, and listening to the podcast was a pretty cool experience. So, thank you.